Kant's transcendental idealism a bit. So Kant's transcendental, in a very rough and superficial way, but in a way which hopefully will give us idea about what he's talking about, transcendental idealism. So we say transcendental because with transcendental we differentiate between Kant's idealism and absolute idealism of Hegel and others, and also subjective idealism or so-called subjective idealism of Berkeley, for example. So Kant is not an idealist in Hegelian sense, and he's not an idealist in Berkeleyan sense. In fact, he considers Berkeley's idealism as a scandal of philosophy. Okay. Now, in order to understand Kant's understanding of causality in time, we need to understand Kant's conception of knowledge, let's say, or objective perception. So, so for Kant, generally speaking, in order to have a knowledge of objects, first we need information about them as provided our senses, and then we need to organize that information into. Okay, that's the function of concepts, and only with concepts we have judgment. With judgment we get knowledge. And concepts and categories are similar things, but not the same, because it's not the concepts which give objectivity to perception, but categories. So concepts are empty without this information, and information is blind in a way without concepts. Okay, so concepts are I'll explain the difference in a minute, but concepts are a priori, in the sense that without them we can't have any understanding. And for Kant, in contrast with Hume, for example, we don't learn causality from experience. I mean, of course, we do see an experience, but that's not what gives experiential causality, is not what gives objectivity to our knowledge. For Hume says that we learn causality through experience. We always see that if we, rub a stack of matches against the surface, it burns. Or, for example, if we throw a stone at a window, it breaks. So through this repetition and what he called constant conjunction, we learn the concept of causality. That's Hume. That's why, and so there is a necessity in Hume's conception of causality, but that necessity is unacceptable to Kant because it's a habitual necessity. It's not a rational necessity. It's just the way we have seen things, and as we know, our habits can be proven wrong. As people say, barking dogs don't bite, but you don't know when they will stop barking and bite. In a similar way, although our expectation is that next stone I throw at a window will break it, but it's not necessary. It can be otherwise. But habitually, so habitual necessity is something which can break. We see it's a habit like induction. It's basically induction. So the thing about induction is induction can never provide you with necessity, or induction. The necessity of induction is not ironclad necessity, because even though we see that crows have always been black, but we never know when the next crow we see. Right? So we only need one non-black crow in order to disprove the generalization that all crows are black, for example. On the other hand, rational necessity never is indefeasible, in the sense that we know that A is B, and B is C. No, A is C. No amount of experience can, you know, damage or break this necessity. This is rational necessity. So for Kant, in a way, causality is more like this rather than habitual necessity. So one of Kant's projects is to prove that causality is not just a habitual necessity or habitual concept or experiential concept. It doesn't deny that we have an experiential concept of causality, but what he says is that in order to have that concept, we need a prior concept of causality, which is not based on experience, but which is a priori, that is, which is part of the structure of our understanding. So for Kant, as against Hume, so for him, causality we learn through experience. Like, so my next experience actually can disprove causality in a way. But for Kant, causality is a priori. Means it's, in order to have experience, we need causality. Without causality, we won't have any experience in the first place. So it means that causality can never be disproved by experience. That's what we mean by a priori. A sort of simplistic but helpful way of understanding this is to say that for Kant, our minds, and mind you, this is not brain, our minds are structured in such a way that we cannot help, or in other words, we are forced to, or are compelled to, although this force and compulsion is rational compulsion, because it's compulsion of mind, we cannot help perceive the world in terms of cause and effect. So it's part of my mind, the concept of causality. So it's prior to experience. It's more like if I had a permanent glasses or spectacles, which I had no freedom to take off, and if they had certain color or they showed things in a certain way, I could not help but see the world through those glasses. So these concepts and categories are glasses of our mind in a way. So in that sense, for Kant, concepts, and for now we can take them as same things, although they are not, as we'll come to know in due course. Concepts and categories, they are the lenses or lens through which we organize our experience. So, and this lens is permanent. It's not the lens which I am wearing, which I can take off. But a couple of things about it. For Kant, this lens is lens of mind, not brain, and mind or consciousness, and that's what constitutes our rational. So, in that sense, they are lens of not just my mind, but mind in general. So, in another way, they are lens or part of the structure of rationality. So it's not just this or that experience, but experience in general, which I can't think of experience in general without this structure. Okay, so I think we'll stop here and we'll continue this next time. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك. صلى الله عليه وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى ال سيدنا مولانا محمد وبارك وسلم.